Oh, hey, there it is. We are live.
Two
I
Bros
was
Wrestling
checking my.
shows on the air.
We are live. What is happening, everybody? What's happening, Kevin?
I am excited tonight, Doug, because it is the Christmas edition of the Two Bros Wrestling Show. And last Christmas, when we had our final episode of the year, it was in that period of time when your attendance was more often than not happening. So you missed the Christmas edition last year,
Oh,
and
did I?
we had to rely on
Huh.
Coffee the Elf and as a replacement. And somehow
All
she
right.
managed to infect like half of our viewers. I'm still not sure how that worked, and we're still in litigation over some of that. So it's good you're back for this Christmas show.
All right. Yay me. I'm making notes for the show right now.
It's not that
Making
he's
some
not
notes.
prepared, folks. It's that he is just last minute thinking of additional things.
Yes,
Don't be fooled.
additional things. Additional. That's absolutely right. Additional things.
As we
Absolutely.
as we have alluded
Additional.
to, this is not only our Christmas edition; it is the last show of the year, which is both sad and exciting because it also means the holidays are upon us, and sad in that my goodness, 2022 went by in a flash, Doug.
So here's the thing, it's sad, but it's going to be exhausting because we're going to have to do a 2022 re-up at the beginning of 23. My goodness, that show's going to be 6 hours long. There was so much wrestling news in 2022.
That is true. We are returning in January 8th after tonight, and it will be our annual award show edition where we look back at 2022. And you might be correct, Doug. Maybe instead of a single show, we need to do a Ken Burns style documentary series on the year that was
Right?
2022 in wrestling because it was a crazy one.
It's been a very crazy year.
But tonight's show is Christmas themed, and Dear Triple H is the theme for tonight's show. Instead of Santa, we are writing our wishes to the other big man, the man in Titan Towers now. We want some Christmas gifts. We are spoiled, entitled wrestling fans, and Triple H has given us a lot already, but daggone it, we'll take more. And that is what our main
Absolutely.
event topic is. But, Doug, before we get to the main event topic, just a touch of news.
Just a touch.
Just a touch of news. Opening bell time. Folks, we're going to start with some happy wrestling, everybody. On the heels of
Happy,
ROH.
happy,
I
happy
love that.
wrestling. It's
ROH
great,
and
isn't it?
that's the best tag. Happy wrestling, everybody. And there is reason to be happy. Not only did ROH host Final Battle, their final pay-per-view event of the year, today Tony Khan announced the next phase in this rebirth of Ring of Honor. ROH Honor Club has relaunched. The streaming platform
Woohoo!
is $9.99 a month and will feature supposedly will feature updated functionality as well as access to the more than 2,500 hours of the ROH historic library dating all the way back to 2002. And as part of the announcement, Doug, this is the interesting thing. Khan also said that early next year, so early on here in 2023, just around the corner, ROH television shows will become part of the Honor Club service on a weekly basis.
Awesome.
So for now, at least, it seems that the ROH go-ahead plan is instead of a linear TV program, it looks like weekly ROH TV will be via the streaming space as part of a subscription model. So in that
Nice.
way, it's kind of much like the original NXT, I guess, if you think about it like that. Um, Final Battle saw the crowning of several new champions. So they've reset the chessboard for this next ROH phase. So you're going to have the pure title on Wheeler Yuta, the women's title on Athena, the TV title still on Samoa Joe, the tag titles back on the Briscoe brothers, and the world title on Claudio Castagnoli. And it's notable, Doug, that all of these champions, other than Athena, because there really wasn't much of a women's division in Ring of Honor's history, but all those other champions have historic ties to Ring of Honor, and the previous incarnation of Ring of Honor. So likely not at all a coincidence that they decided to make the switches that they did prior to Ring of Honor going back to weekly television.
Yeah, I think we got most of Final Battle wrong too with our calls.
There was a lot that was not predicted. That is for sure. But at the time, we didn't know that Ring of Honor was about to launch again as a weekly TV show. What do you think about that? Obviously, it wasn't ideal having Ring of Honor sort of a brand within a brand. I think it could maybe be a little confusing for fans. Also, there's only so much time. AEW was already having trouble getting all their talent on air.
Yes.
I like that they're separating it, but do you think that maybe the streaming service is maybe just sort of a default plan for the fact they couldn't actually score, or figured that in this landscape, when they're even worried about AEW contracts, that scoring a lucrative TV deal at this point for yet another brand is probably not in the cards for them?
It's probably not in the cards, and it's probably the best worst decision on the table for Ring of Honor yet again. But I mean, it's better than being bankrupt and no Ring of Honor on our TV, or I guess our computer screens, or whatever streaming device you use. But I think I'm happy with it. I'll take this.
I'm in agreement with you, and it sort of opens the crack in that door for AEW to also become part of some sort of streaming service other than the current pay-per-view model that they have. A combo service where you bring all of Tony Khan's brands together at some point in the future does make a whole lot of sense. And I can't imagine that isn't the way that it'll eventually go, because it's what WWE did to big profits. Why would you let the middleman take so much of your money when you can go directly to the people with your own platform?
Absolutely. And it makes sense. The infrastructure already existed for Honor Club, so it makes sense to get it running again and go ahead and put a weekly show on there. Sure. Do it that way.
100%. So following up on a story we initially reported last week, and speaking of Tony Khan, this is how I'm transitioning here, but we noted in the top of our news segment last week that William Regal's departure from AEW was imminent, and he was returning to WWE. We speculated at the time as to maybe why this would be, and turns out we're pretty much spot on with what we were saying, because this week Tony Khan basically confirmed what we had been speculating, and that is that Regal's primary motivation for returning to WWE was to be with his son. Khan gave a little bit of background into the conversation that he had with Regal, revealing that the stroke that his mother had recently suffered in this past year factored into his decision to grant Regal his request. Regal actually phoned him at a time that he was at the hospital with his mother, and so the timing of it all made it real easy for him to think family first over business, and to give Regal what it is that he wanted. There is one caveat, and that is that because Regal was such an important part of AEW storylines as an on-air character, the Khan requested that Regal's WWE contract, which will begin next month, will stipulate Regal is not allowed to appear on screen for all of 2023.
I get it. I tell my employees always health and family first. If you don't have those two things, there's really no point in working. So I kind of see that what Khan's done there. Although in some of the news I've seen, Tony never mentions WWE by name. It's another wrestling company, which I'm like, are we going the Vince McMahon route where we don't talk about the competition all of a sudden? It's just odd to me, but I get what Tony's doing, and good for Regal.
Yeah, good for Regal, and it would be a hard request to deny, especially when it's put to you that way. And truly, if you have someone who doesn't want to be there, then what kind of employee will you have moving forward? So it was probably best for all involved that the decision went the way that it did. But yeah, to your point, good for Tony, good for Regal.
Yeah.
The road between AEW, though, and WWE does go both ways, Doug. So Regal may be going one direction, but as we learned this week, Trent Seven is headed the other. So we're trading one Brit for another. The former NXT UK stalwart, who was released by WWE, it should be noted, earlier this year, is now All Elite. He appeared this week both on Rampage and, of course, at NXT. I'm sorry, not at NXT Deadline, but at ROH Final Battle. So if you're a big Trent Seven fan, you're going to get to see him again on AEW, because apparently AEW has roster spots. I imagine, though, he's probably so, a little facetiousness. I would think maybe a Ring of Honor. Do you think that Ring of Honor makes more sense for a Trent Seven?
That'd be a great place for a Trent Seven, especially with them having their weekly show at least on Honor Club. So I think that'd be a good spot for Trent Seven.
Because it doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot of room on AEW. And in fact, maybe we can clear some room by taking those underutilized talent with Ring of Honor ties and moving them over that direction. But Trent definitely seems, both in his, I guess, presentation, I would see him more on the Ring of Honor side than fitting in right now in the current AEW universe.
Yeah, me too.
So speaking of this weekend's pay-per-views, let's go to NXT Deadline, because I just want to talk about the Iron Survivor match. We made a big deal last week of trying to explain this new concept match, and I want to say I did get it wrong. A couple of the things we speculated on last week were actually incorrect, when I thought that the match you were not able to score pinfalls until the 25-minute mark, which was actually not the case. The entire match was 25 minutes, and I actually think that there was a lot of proof in concept there. I think that both matches delivered, especially the men's match. I think my being wrong actually aided the match. I think the 25-minute time limit made it more like a sprint. And it also added the factor of racing that clock. It made for nonstop action, and sometimes in gimmick matches, nonstop action just means spot fest without selling. But I think that the way they've tweaked the many rules of this match, it kept that from happening, because it added a sense of strategy, so that all of this fast-paced action actually seemed to have a point to it. There was a lot of elements that fans already like the countdown clock and the who's next kind of factor you get with the Royal Rumble or War Games or Elimination Chamber. But unlike those three matches, where there's a big advantage to being the last person in, so you're fresh, this one you want to be the first person in, because you only have 25 minutes to score pinfalls. And if you're the last person in, you're coming in at like the 15, 20-minute mark, and you're probably already way behind. So this is probably the only concept match I can think of where you want to be first, or one of the first two participants, to have that full 25 minutes to score. So it just made for a lot of interesting strategy, and all the big spots moments had purpose. And they answered your question, Doug. If two people end up in the penalty booth at the same time,
they fight. They will fight.
I know you did a catch Deadline. What did you think of the concept? I actually think that this is something that they'll probably bring back, because it seems successful to me.
Yeah, I really liked it. However, when I hear Iron and Survivor, I'm thinking that it should go long, though. I do like the crispness of WWE pay-per-views and NXT pay-per-views, but I really wanted to see see the match go long, because again, that's what I think we're both old school, and we're here like Iron Man match, Iron Woman match, okay, this is going, and it's going a long time. But I did like the crispness, the strategy, and you're absolutely right, you want to be that very first person in there to score as much as you can while you can.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think if I would tweak one thing, looking at the first ones and going, how can we improve this, it would be to lengthen it. But then you said it, we're old school, so our ideas of Iron Man matches is Shawn versus Brett for 60 minutes. Right, exactly. When they started these 30-minute Iron Man matches, I always thought, that's only half an Iron Man. That's not a full Iron Man.
Right.
And then when you throw 5 people into it, it seems like the pinfalls come even faster, of course, and makes that 30 minutes feel even shorter. So I'd say, it's 25 minutes. I'd say at the very least it needs 45, but ideally, I think an hour time limit, do a Royal Rumble style match.
Yeah.
Well, why not? I mean, I think that when you have 5 people in the ring, there really isn't, you don't have to worry so much about catching your breath. There's enough people to keep the action going for 60 minutes and still make a compelling match.
Absolutely.
But I liked it. I'm glad to hear that you liked it too, because I know that trying to explain it, just reading the rules, we all got kind of lost in the weeds. But when you see it play out, I don't know what you thought. It seemed real logical to me.
It made a lot more sense, when presented, and then you see it in action. You're like, oh, okay, I get it. And I'm a very visually oriented person anyway, so like I see it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, this starts to make more sense now. I felt that. I don't know, just even when they were talking about it beforehand, there was like a lot of unnecessary complexity to it, but there really wasn't. It's just something new and different. Yeah. So,
and new and different is good, especially when the concept lands. And oftentimes they do get overly convoluted. This one landed for both of us. So definitely go check it out if you missed what an Iron Survivor match is. It was very well scripted and plotted out, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Doug, finally, before we go into our main event topic, I know that you will concur with me on this one. So on behalf of the Two Bros Wrestling Show, we are sending our thoughts and best wishes of recovery to wrestling legend Barry Windham. Windham suffered a massive heart attack at the Atlanta airport recently, and there was some indication earlier in this week that the damage was so severe that he would not ultimately survive. There was some encouraging news, though, by the end of the week that he had stabilized and, in fact, is out of ICU. So the family has taken to social media. The Windham family is robust and still in the wrestling world, because we're talking your Bray Wyatts of the world here. And they've been asking for help. They have set up a GoFundMe page for donations for the medical care of Barry. So in the spirit of the holiday, if you're so inclined and have a little extra cash, a quick Google search will easily uncover that for you. But best wishes from the Two Bros Wrestling Show to Barry Windham, because we didn't discuss this ahead of time, Doug, but I'm presuming you were a Wyndham fan as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially for his era. I mean, he was a big guy who could also work, and he was. If anything, I think Barry was underrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with that, Doug, it's time for Christmas.
time for Papa H, Santa H.
It is time for us to make wishes of the big man. We all, as wrestling fans, want certain things, and it seems here lately that fan service has been a priority for both WWE and AEW, really. As we say a lot on this show, it is right now a very good time to be a professional wrestling fan. But Doug, we've seen a lot of great things from Triple H, but don't you still have some things on that wish list that you don't have yet?
I have where's the camera? I have a few things on my list here that, I mean, it's not a robust list, but I'm not a greedy Mark. I'm just a grumpy old Mark, But yeah, there are things that I would like to see Papa H, pull out of that big Santa sack for 2023.
Well, I do. I'm not as grumpy as you, but I do tend to be more robust. So maybe you will start with my list. I have a feeling we're going to have some. I would be surprised if there isn't a gift or two that we
I'm sure.
don't ask for. But I'm going to start big. I'm going to start with one that is not going to happen. I don't know that Triple H is so far different from Vince McMahon in this respect that he would leave money on the table. But sometimes you leave money for art. Not in the business world, but this is my world that we're talking about here. So my wish is, let us go back to the days of 2-hour Raws.
Oh my gosh, that's on my list.
See, I knew you.
2-hour Raws. I'll just mark that one off. 2-hour Raws.
Since I'm marking out one off your list, give me some of your rationale for that.
WWE has a lot of talent, but they also have a tremendous amount of airtime weekly, and a 2-hour Raws, just like their pay-per-views right now. I mean, they're very crisp. I think they could run. You can tell stories, and I think maybe you're inspired by your limitations there to get more stories in instead of just trying to drag things out to fill time and throwing filler out there. You get your stories moving, you get things going, and it's honestly, it's one less hour of wrestling to watch every week, which once upon a time would have been a terrible thing for any wrestling fan to say. But in 2022, we have a obscene amount of wrestling to watch every week. And it would just, I think it would just make the product crisp and better.
Historically speaking, 3 hours were what was reserved for pay-per-views. And now, 3 hours is just time to fill. And it reminds me more of like when Nitro first went to 3 hours and it just became bloated. Like, yes. I think a 2-hour show is easier to get through. Save the 3 hours for big events like pay-per-views. Make 3.5, maybe 4 for WrestleMania, but you start getting beyond that and you're just wearing out your audience.
Absolutely.
I knew good. If anyone loves Christmas, it's my sister. So thank you.
Indeed, she does. Hey, Vanna. Scott. Same to you, brother. Same to you.
So thanks, everybody, for tuning in for our Christmas edition. Doug and I are in agreement, though. Christmas wish number 1 is 2-hour Raws. Bring them back. Doug, I'd also like to see Triple H, please, strict adherence to the brand split. If we're going to even pretend there is still such a thing as separate brands, we have enough airtime to have completely different styles of shows. Can we, for the first time, really, since they started this in the early 2000s and then went away from it and then brought it back, it's always been, in my mind, a bit of a half measure. I still don't think that they've ever done it for long enough and strictly enough for it to ever really catch on with the same, with the type of, I guess, I don't know how to put this, but let's just maybe put it this way. Real quick, Big E, which brand does he belong to before he went down with injury?
Was he Raw? Was he injured on Raw? Or was it Smack? I don't remember.
That's the point. Outside of a few people that you can think of, I think that if you just really quickly threw out there, hey, this guy or gal, I don't think people pay attention to the brand split because it really doesn't matter. On any given week, you can have a special guest floating back and forth, and it just makes it it makes you wonder why even bother, right?
It really does. Yeah, I've never really had a problem with there not being a brand split, I guess, or maybe at this point I have, and I just don't remember it because I'm a grumpy old Mark. But I mean, if you're going to have a
grumpy Kevin Robust.
Grumpy and Robust. That's what we should change the name of the show to, the Grumpy and Robust Wrestling Show. But I digress. At this point, I think it'd be very difficult to enforce a brand split when you have one stable that has unified titles, and then that whole thing would have to be broken up. But that's maybe on somebody's wish list too. So
I think you either enforce a brand split or get rid of it altogether. It's the in-between that makes it confusing. And I think you could do a brand split and let your champions float back and forth. Let your champions be the only one with the privilege to go back and forth. And you can have fresh feuds for them. When they're done on Raw, they can move to a feud on SmackDown, and you stop the overexposure. It's not like Roman's showing up every week now anyway. I mean, I think that what they have started would be a perfect way to keep pushing towards an actual brand split. But I agree with you that if you're not going to go all the way with it, if it's going to be too hard, then just forget that it's happening completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you did kind of see up go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, it's that half measures that you're talking about where, it's wild card rules now. What is that?
So your mention of the titles, if you don't mind, since I might have a few more, I'm going to hit you with one more because this is a good segment.
Go ahead.
Start referring to Roman's title in the singular. The use of world titles makes it feel like any moment now they're going back to splitting those up. Same for the tag belts. I don't need to see 2 guys for several months holding 4 belts. Let's make it permanent with single titles for everyone, and both for Roman, and let's do the same for the tag titles.
I like that a bunch of guys are carrying around a bunch of belts. I like that visual. Again, at one point I probably have more of a problem with this, but it directly conflicts with something on my wish list. If you unify styles right now,
let's hear it. What is that?
So actually this is a 2-parter on our wish list, right? First of all, Roman needs to lose one of those titles. I don't remember which one he had first at this point, but the one he had first, he needs to keep, because I would love to see, and this isn't just for like 23, this has to go on through like 24, maybe even 25. I have to check my math. But Roman needs a Bruno Sammartino type reign with one of those titles. The one he had first before he unified the titles. That'd been the SmackDown, and then did he take the
Yes.
Raw? Was it Raw that he took?
So, I mean, the WWE Championship he had, and I think Universal is what he got.
Right.
Yeah.
So, keep him with the one he had and let him have a legendary run that is going to be impossible. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be impossible with Roman, but I would love to see it happen. And I think it would be great if it did, if he breaks one of those Bruno Sammartino runs with one of his titles. And then those titles have to be kept separate, because in 2023, I want to see Sami Zayn take one of those titles from him. The groundwork has been laid already. It's there. It's gonna happen. It should happen. Just pull the trigger on that in 23, and that actually takes two things off my list. So,
if Santa H is actually reading his mail up there to the North Pole, I have a feeling that there are a lot of folks in agreement with Doug that Sami Zayn needs to be a champion, and soon. Sami's the most over guy on maybe any roster in wrestling right now. So who knows, Doug? That might be one that might actually come true. That might not be asking for too much.
Man, I know the Bruno Sammartino Roman Reigns thing is a big ask, but
it's a big ask, but it'd be good.
It would be very cool, but Sammy is the most over babyface that it just happens to be in a heel stable. I think in history.
Yeah, I love the way you describe that, because that is spot on. He's the biggest face of the biggest heel faction, and how often does that ever happen? That's pretty cool,
right?
So, related to my last one, let's unify the women's titles. That would make for one set of champions across both brands. So book Ronda Bianca unification match at WrestleMania. Who wouldn't want to see Ronda versus Bianca? They've not really touched, and let's make it title for title and do for the women what we did for the men at last year's WrestleMania, and make it as big a deal for closing out one of the two nights of Mania, just like they did with Roman and Lesnar last year.
I would be good with that. Absolutely. I would, and I would love to see Bianca walk away with that. If I'm doing some armchair booking, that's what I would. I'm yes. Let's do it. Put it in the stocking. Let's do it. Book it.
So Triple H, this one might be on Doug's list as well. If not, I know that he's going to want this same gift when he sees me playing with it. But can you give us Pete Dunne? You've done so much to change characters and names back and fix some wrongs. Can we get rid of Butch and let's just have Pete Dunne?
Yes, let's. It's on my list in a much better way, that not just Pete Dunne, but yes, I want Pete Dunne back. I want to stop with these ridiculous name changes, Triple H. Let's do this. With the exception of one. One person needs a name change because his name is ridiculous. But when you call that Steiner kid up, you let him be a Steiner on the main roster. These are my asks. Pete Dunne gets his name back. Stop changing people's names when you call them up. Give that Steiner kid his name when he gets on up to the main roster. You got me going now, man. This is a Christmas show, and you got me ranting.
I shouldn't have mentioned as one of my gifts something that was going to bring up Braun Breaker, because Doug sort of tipped his hand last week. Whenever the name Braun Breaker gets mentioned, old man Grump there goes off.
What are they going to do when they call him up to the main roster and it's Braun Breaker versus Braun Strowman? Oh, they're spelled different. Oh, yeah, come on. It's ridiculous. Call the kid a Steiner. I don't even know the kid's first name, but call the kid a Steiner. Let him use his name. Come on.
I don't know the answer to that one, Scott. I haven't heard anything about them changing Asuka. I don't know how well at this point in her career that would go over. But I would like to see them, if anything, be more strict about sticking to characters than maybe changing them. And that's sort of the Butch Pete Dunne ask on my part. Not that Asuka couldn't use a bit of a refresh, but I would keep I actually, if anything, I'd like to see them more turn back to the NXT version of Asuka and less comedy and yeah, exactly, more intensity and less comedy.
Yes. Yeah, I'd be good for that. But stop changing names, except for Braun Breaker. Give that kid his name back. Do it, please.
While we're on the topic of just being grouchy for Christmas, let's can we just go ahead, since we now know that people don't just get fired from WWE and they don't just go to AEW, but people actually come back from AEW? Can we all just agree that as great as AEW is, that Andrade hasn't fared well? So let's just bring him home and let him reunite with his wife and be happier, and maybe have the kind of push that and have the kind of booking that Triple H had for Andrade on NXT, which is still by far the old black and gold brand of NXT was the best Andrade has ever appeared on United States television anyway. So let's bring that version of Andrade back home to Triple H land.
I have zero problem with that. Let's do that. Let's do it.
I mean, because really, quiz time. Like, what is he doing right now on AEW? Like, what's his main storyline at the moment?
Yeah, so wait, his main storyline is that he is part of the house. Wait, it's not the house. I'm going to call it the House of Andrade because it's been the Hardy House, this house. It changes names more than like the gas station down here at the bottom of the hill does.
So yeah, bring him home because he's not really doing anything of note there, and I know it will make you. It would make one of your top women talents happier. To be traveling once again with her husband. And I don't, if all indication is that Andrade isn't happy, I mean, Tony said on his contract, if you have to, or buy him out, whatever you need to do. But I think it would be best for everyone involved at this point for Andrade to come back.
Yeah, I think that would be good because AEW does have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to talent right now, and they don't have all the hours of TV that the WWE has to get everybody on, and Elevation and Dark and all that YouTube stuff is great for when they were a small little indie up and coming group, but they have talent like Andrade that belongs on Dynamite weekly in a major role.
Yep.
And Miro too, actually. How could creative have nothing for Miro while we're angry Mark rant here? Let Miro go back. Let Miro go back to free Miro, right?
that one was also on my wish list, so I'll mark that one out too. Same thing. What's he doing over there? Like it's fits and stops. Like he's around for a bit and then he disappears for months at a time. Not enough TV time and not enough consistent push to make anything ever stick with either of those two guys.
I was reading just this past week, and forgive me because I don't remember what wrestling outlet it was, but Miro's not on TV right now, not because he's injured, but legitimately in a WWE fashion, creative has nothing for him.
Which is ridiculous.
How is that possible?
How is that possible? Doug, I'm going to give another wish here that's also impossible because it's money and it's about the same as going from 3 hours to 2 hours of Raw. It would be maybe not what's best for financial business, but it would be the best thing for everybody despite the money left on the table. This one won't happen, but man, oh man, Triple H, just say screw him. Get out of that Saudi Arabia deal, buy them out of the contract, do whatever you need to do, look like a good humanitarian and hero by the fact you're walking away for millions of dollars to not do business with a dictatorship with a horrible human rights record. Just stop doing business with the kingdom and the prince of Saudi Arabia and putting your men and women in jeopardy, quite honestly, every time you go into town.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see that happen, man. I mean, because all those are like hours long promotional propaganda for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and those wrestlers had some very terrifying experiences over there in the past that folks have recounted afterwards. But yeah, I would love to see that gone.
and there's been some, I mean, in the world of non-scripted sports, some controversies as it relates to Saudi Arabia too, in the world of pro golf, for example, when a Saudi Arabian golf league started competing with the PGA and hiring away because they have the millions and millions of dollars talent from the PGA Tour, that some of their events were being no-showed by folks that were signing exclusive contracts to work with the prince, again, just for propaganda's sake. So I'm hoping that all the negative attention that is being, that will happen as a result of that will remind folks of the fact that WWE has been doing business with them for several years now, and maybe Triple H can find a way out of that. So if I could have a Christmas wish, I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, what is that, like a 10-year deal? And we're about halfway. Are we halfway through that? Two shows a year for like 10 years or something like that?
Because I think that they signed it, and then there was a couple of years where it didn't happen because of the pandemic. Yeah. So because of that gap, that probably added that time on the back end, and so it's probably extended beyond what we even thought. We're probably not 3 years into it, maybe 3 and 3.5.
So yeah.
But give me one.
So this kind of dovetails with what you're talking about there. Not getting out of a deal, getting into more deals. Triple H's WWE is acknowledging other promotions, which I like. So let's make some money. Let's see some crossovers. Let's see some New Japan action. Let's see some AEW action. Let's see some Impact action. Let's even ROH. Tony owns both AEW and ROH. Let's see some crossovers now beyond just acknowledging these talents are coming from here, going from there. Honestly, thought that might be the case when I heard that Sasha Banks is now going to show up in Japan at the beginning of the year, but then from this I'm hearing from Wrestle Talk, Meltzer's reporting that Sasha made this on her own because everybody in New Japan believes that she will be free and clear to do whatever she wants to by the time Wrestle Kingdom comes around this year. So it sounds like, unless that's all a red herring and there is some WWE action, WWE did not book Sasha there; she did it herself. So I'm assuming that those guys, while there may be a little bit of a door open to talk, it ain't open the way I'd like to see it.
So I promise folks we don't read each other's notes. We do not come ahead of time. But yes, I had Forbidden Door on my list because Triple H has shown that he is willing to acknowledge that there's a broader world beyond WWE. He is also probably the reason, I can't imagine Vince had anything to do with it or even knew that it was happening, that there were indie promotions actually on his network. I'm sure he did not know. It has to be Triple H sneaking them in. So why not? We know that Triple H has allowed some WWE talent to talk to New Japan about appearing on like Wrestle Kingdom. So let's make it more official and let's open up. I mean, if it worked wonders for AEW to just do the occasional one-off, the occasional program, I'm 100% in agreement with it because that was on my list too. And also, since you mentioned Sasha, that goes nicely into my next point. And Sasha and Naomi, let's just solve it already. Let's make amends, get them back on the air. Royal Rumble seems like the perfect time. Women's Battle Royal, maybe it is a red herring, Doug. I hope that it is, but this is stretched on for too long for the boss not to be on our TV screens in our rings.
Yeah, I would love. My armchair booking was to have Sasha back by Royal Rumble, and leading into a nice WrestleMania story for her. I would love to see Naomi be acknowledged as part. I can see what I did there, as part of the bloodline, and bring her in, into the bloodline, because we have this family. She is part of that family, legit. Let's get her in there. However, with everything I was just watching and reading today, it sounds like Sasha, or unless it's a red herring that's going all the way up through the dirt sheets, that Sasha made this booking at New Japan on her own for the beginning of the year, and New Japan believes that she's going to be free and clear and doesn't have to clear anything through WWE by then. So who knows? Maybe she's Saraya's mystery partner at some upcoming events.
I would like to see her back in WWE because I think she'll flourish under Triple H, who booked her so strongly in NXT. But as long as she's in a ring somewhere and not just on my Instagram, I would be happy.
Yeah, and she also trademarked Mercedes Monet too, so along with her own name. So everything leans very heavy into her being going independent. So I don't know.
And you're right, Scott. That is exactly what we've been hearing as well. That even though that she was open to have conversations with WWE, and those conversations were apparently have been happening ever since Triple H took over on a recurring basis. It seems to be the main sticking point is money, um,
Well,
and and that's something that apparently has not been worked out yet, or at least that's what they were wanting us to believe. And unless it is a red herring, as Doug maybe alluded to.
because everything's a work until it's not. I'm still sure that Dean Ambrose didn't really leave WWE because it's all a work.
Dean Ambrose left WWE, maybe, but his former alter ego. That's why we had Butches and Pete Dunnes in the world, because. Oh, Doug, we've mentioned NXT a lot, so my next wish is NXT related. And Triple H, if you could please put NXT back on the road. They are the only brand that doesn't tour in WWE. Some of the NXT shows we saw back in the Black and Gold day were some of the best live wrestling shows I have ever attended.
Absolutely.
The atmosphere was great. You have an exciting crop of young talent. Again, you've ditched the 2.0 thing, some of the more ridiculous gimmicks. It's starting to feel a little bit more like Triple H's fingerprints. They are touring limited in Florida like they did back in the old days. Next step, in my opinion, is like the old days. Let's put them in the mid-sized club, get down and dirty with the people, being like right all in on the ring kind of feels like they used to have with the NXT road shows. And let's get this group of men and women back on the road so they can truly get the seasoning that they need in order to live the lifestyle of a Raw or SmackDown talent once they get there.
Absolutely, I would love to see NXT back on the road. I would be able to love. I'd be able to love again, Kevin, if NXT were back.
Wow, this is an important wish.
So come on, Triple H, make that happen.
Please, Triple H, help Doug to love again.
What I was going to say is I would love to be able to go a couple of hours to see a short drive up to Cincinnati, Columbus, Charleston would be great. Send him to Huntington, But I would love to see them on the road again. That would be great. That would be a good one. And then I would be able to love again. So come on, Papa, make that happen for me.
That's fantastic. Oh man, Doug, this one might be a big ask of Triple H, but I think that it's the next logical step with everything that's happened over the last 6 months, at least. But let's poach an AEW star. Getting Cody was a coup that Vince was involved in because, Cody was originally a WWE guy, right, friend of the family. I mean, Vince had to give his blessing and all that. You'd really make a splash to show it's a new era of wrestling if you took away a guy who's never been in WWE. I'm not just saying necessarily MJF and his maybe not really expiring contract, but that would be obviously a Big E, a Young Bucks, or any other sort of difference maker who made his name over there instead of making his name with you first. I think that it would definitely look like it's a brand new day in the world of wrestling if you saw that a homegrown talent could leave for the competition.
Who would that be, though? I mean, if we're talking about the pillars of AEW, you got Sammy, Guevara, MJF. I think which would be the biggest name that could be pulled.
Yes.
Darby Allin is referred to as a pillar, but I don't see Darby. No offense to Darby or the folks who love his work, but yeah, I don't see Darby as a big win for WWE other than MJF. Thinking about homegrown talent, unless you start pulling VPs, Kenny, Bucks, Hangman, but I don't see that happening.
So I think I actually would think that maybe, MJF definitely, that's the biggest get right there. I think that it's a bit of a ruse and that he's dangling that contract. I think he and Tony have likely sealed a deal on something. They've just not announced for an extension on that. But I think that maybe somebody should be taking offense to those 4 pillars and the fact that they're all pretty heavily male. Who wouldn't want to see the Good Doctor against Bianca Belair? Who wouldn't want to see the Good Doctor, against Ronda Rousey or against Bayley? I mean, Britt Baker is a star, and it became a star in AEW. And I don't know that Adam Cole, her real life husband, would actually be over in AEW had things worked out the way they ended up working out, and Triple H would have stayed in charge instead of Vince McMahon. Adam Cole would still be over in WWE. They're still close, and why not bring Britt Baker over if you can poach a big talent with
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Absolutely. The Good Doctor would be an excellent win for them.
Excellent win for sure. Doug, do you have anything more? I got a few more. I don't want to keep going.
I have stopped changing names like 3 more times on my list, but I think we've already covered it pretty thoroughly. And everybody who watches the show is well aware of my feelings on it and what I really want for Christmas this year, that and being able to love again. So
oh, well, how about this one, Doug? See what you if you agree with me on this one. But how about let's introduce a must-see in-ring product to exclusively to WWE Network. Outside the premium live events, it was NXT that made the WWE Network must-have to begin with.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's still a bargain to not have to pay a monthly pay-per-view fee, but I watch it far less often in the Peacock era.
Yes, agreed.
So let's get some buzz programming going again. I'm not talking, main event or some of these B-level shows that they have on there. Where's the next Cruiserweight Classic, the women's tournament? Maybe NXT Europe will one day come to save the day on this one. But right now, I just don't feel like outside of the pay-per-view events that they have that buzzworthy, like exclusive to the network.
Yeah, that would be good because you're absolutely right. Back in the day, the $9.99 was well worth it just for NXT. I would pay $9.99 a month for old school black and gold NXT, and basically I did just for NXT and a few other programs here and there. And I definitely do not want. I have Peacock for the pay-per-view or the premium live events.
Yeah. Every now and then I'll not every now and then, when they release a Broken Skull session, I try to make a point to see those, but they don't even do the documentaries as often as they used to. The Ric Flair one is showing some promise. That looks interesting, but I do think they need to step it up on the network side. I think that in the Peacock era, they maybe got a bit lazy on that.
Yeah.
And I am excited for NXT Europe. I think that there's a lot of possibilities there, and that maybe might save the day on that wish. You've already talked about the revolving door. I'm not the revolving door, the forbidden door. So what I got here? I got 2 more. So
all right.
First, fix the announcing of all the changes for the better with the majority of the product. The wholesale changes to all the announced teams all at once has proven to be, in my opinion, a big mess. Michael Cole is the lone exception. I never thought I'd say that, but he announces as if the shackles are off of him, and he's way better. I'm actually not a Cole hater, maybe not a coal miner yet, but Michael Cole has been a bright spot to all these changes. I'm also fine with the elimination of the 3-man desk, which I do think can be one too many. But outside of that, the rest of the changes have all been for the worst. To reinforce the brand split, I'd like to see the announcing team still calling their brands matches instead of just one team for the whole pay-per-view. Right. But worse than that, they had a great solution to their flagship show in Jimmy Smith, who I thought was Raw's best lead announcer since the JR days. And then they canned him.
Yeah.
And now Kevin Patrick and his overuse of at pace is uninspiring for what should be the most important wrestling show of the week. And the worst of all, and honestly, in this domino effect of changes is what it's done to NXT. The product on NXT has gotten so good, and yet the great Wade Barrett, who was really great on the mic, has now been shifted out to SmackDown.
Right, yeah.
You have to listen to Booker T laughing at his own jokes, spitting cliches, ripping off Robin Leach's catchphrase for some weird reason that he legitimately makes me want to reach for my mute button. Booker T is really the worst on commentary. He's almost unlistenable.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that last night watching Dateline. What was it called?
Deadline. If you were
Deadline.
watching Deadline, you were watching something else.
Oh yeah.
Uh, my final one, Doug, and not just Doug. Triple H, if you're listening, please let's make this one happen, because I think this one is not undoable. But let's just go nuts on Royal Rumble. I mean, nuts on Royal Rumble. It's been a long time since the days where you'd wonder who would show up. Back then, when there was multiple companies, someone could be making the jump from WCW, or we've signed somebody big away from ECW, a favorite who's about to make the big time. In recent years, because of the new world of wrestling that we are in now compared to the old Royal Rumble days, the biggest surprise just tended to be who's coming back from injury that we don't know about yet, or what legend may return for the one-off, even though they are older than and
Right.
retired. But with Triple H heralding a new day and already bringing back lots of previously fired talent, Hunter has the opportunity to make his first Rumble be one that is talked about forever, make a big splash, produce one of the more memorable Rumbles in years. So let's just throw it all out there. We can get major injury comebacks. Let's, Cody, Charlotte, bring them back. Sasha and Naomi, pull these red herrings, sign them, have them come back with an olive branch. Let's steal Andrade back. Rusev, like Doug mentioned, let's get him back. Have The Rock come in and make his Mania intentions known, that he never gave up his seat at the head of the table. Heck,
oh, nice. Yes.
pay CM Punk for one night just to get the reaction from the crowd. I mean, when I say
just,
go nuts,
just to give him a stunner and send him on his way.
give him a one-night payoff just to shock people. You have actually the ability for the first time in years to have a Royal Rumble where anything goes. The last couple, the last Royal Rumble we saw was Shane McMahon booking it and trying to get himself over, and ended up being fired by his dad in a horrible mess that made no sense to anyone. For the last several folks who ended up in that ring, there were no surprises, nothing of note other than things that were ending up bad. There is really a chance right now, with the fact that road does go both ways between those companies, that Triple H is a fan of the international scene, that he's bringing folks home, that he's in talks with other talent, that possibly putting feelers out there a few months ago, angering Tony Khan about poaching guys away. We can really have an exciting Royal Rumble with actual surprises for the first time in a while. And I just say, balls to the wall, throw it all out there, and let's do it. Royal Rumble to remember.
Let's do it. If we can't get an NXT on the road, let's at least get that, because I want to love it. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going to the well with that one tonight.
You can't lose with that one, because that's fantastic. And since Doug, unless you have any other wishes of Triple H, that is our letter to you.
Absolutely. Come on, Santa H. Deliver.
Let's
just
make
some of this stuff.
All you got to do is believe at Christmas, Doug, and so hopefully he watches the show. We know he does.
Well, we know Vince did. So, and clearly, whoever was booking the wacky Iron Survivor thing, said, "Hey, let's put two guys in that penalty box together and just let them throw down." So.
Just let them fight. So yes, Triple H, give us what we want.
Give us what we want.
And with that, Doug, big finish time.
Big finish time.
Watch of the week, my friend.
You know what? I didn't get to watch a lot of wrestling this week. The wrestling I did get to watch was, the premium live event and the pay-per-view this weekend. I really can't call a botch on either one of those two shows. I will say Athena Mercedes,
Yep.
Looked a little clunky in spots, but nothing I'm going to call out as a big botch. So it was a happy week in wrestling for me.
Which, again, grumpy old man. So maybe Christmas is coming early.
I am going to give the qualifier that I didn't get to watch any wrestling through the week, though. So there may have been multiple botches that completely sucked, and I should be calling them out. But I really got nothing, man.
Well, I was traveling a bit, so I didn't see as much wrestling, but I did have a botch of the week, and it is mainly a minor one. Well, I shouldn't say it's a minor one, but The wrestling itself was top notch all weekend long. There is no reason not to be happy with the wrestling itself, but I'm going to call out as my botch of the week the production of Ring of Honor's premium. I guess they're not a premium live pay-per-view event. Audio was messed up a lot. There was a signal loss drop out partway through. You'd have entrance music going over the announcers, starting and stopping. You have camera angles that were missed, pinfalls that were missed because they were shooting the crowd. I mean, any one of these things alone, and I probably wouldn't have noticed, but there were so many of these things. I thought, is it because it's in the afternoon? Are they getting the skeleton crew? Is Tony holding all the best guys for AEW? Especially when you're getting ready to announce your own streaming services back for Ring of Honor fans. I thought the Ring of Honor production was a little shoddy compared to what AEW normally presents on their pay-per-views.
It is so funny that you say that because I really love the way Final Battle was presented. I love that. It had this indie. It had this very indie feel to it. It was raw. It was gritty. Yes, there were camera angles where you're like, okay, was the cameraman sleeping? Who's at the switch, or why are we on this camera instead of this camera? Because we just missed something amazing over here. And there was a lot of stuff like that going on. But I was like, this is old school, like ROH indie, not like ECW Bingo Hall indie, but that whole indie vibe. And I was really digging that.
So did it just land with you, or do you think it was actually intentional that they were going for that feel?
I think partially they were going for that. I think a lot of things are calling out, though. If it was that intentional, man, I'm sure my son could run the show and direct it better. But I think there is an intentional aesthetic, just like I talked about the House of Black aesthetic. There is a very intentional aesthetic with ROH, and I think they were nailing that. Maybe not to the extent that they had intended with some goofs, sure, but I really enjoyed that just kind of whole vibe of it. It was just kind of a vibe for me, so I can't complain too much about it. I really enjoyed it.
Man, even my botches Doug is happy about. Are you sure you haven't found a way to love again?
Well, if we can get NXT back on the road again.
How about your performer of the week, Doug?
Man, let me tell you, Dax continues to deliver and deliver and deliver. I don't want to say he carried that, because all four of them boys, went out of their way to just outdo everything they've done to this point. But I'm going with Dax, from FTR for my performer of the week. He was in that ring so much, doing so much, just making things happen. And that match, I'm just going to go ahead and show my hand here. Definitely match of the week with them boys and FTR doing what they did. They all outdid themselves with everything they've done. We got the Briscoes with the belts again, which is good for ROH diehards. We're bringing everybody with ROH, like you mentioned earlier, those folks back to ROH to launch, I guess, the con era of ROH. But man, that double dog collar tag team match, which not really a big fan of the dog collar matches, and I was not sure how well a tag team dog collar match would work. And it just seems like you got to pay a lot of attention, because there's got to be a lot of directing of traffic, because those chains could get tangled up and somebody could die. And my God, it looked like 4 men almost died so many times during that match. But if you haven't seen that one, if you don't see anything else, from that ROH pay-per-view, seek that match out. Just and just strap in and get ready. It was amazing.
So my performance of the week, I'm going with non-in-ring work, but the work that led to the in-ring. Apollo and Braun gave a good main event to end NXT Deadline. However, I'm giving them my co-performers of the week for everything they did to lead up to that match, which was actually in many ways better than the match itself, because face versus face can be difficult. It takes away a lot of the tropes that you rely on for building wrestling, and that is feuds and anger and insults or sneak attacks. contract signings that go wrong. And instead you had two guys that generally respected each other. So how do you get from point A to like wanting to see these guys fight? So, you let them go out to breakfast together. And there they are at a diner, like, just discussing things, very friendly and getting little digs in on each other. And then by the end of it, Braun invites Apollo to go fishing. So what they could do this week, they went fishing together, and it was great. There they are on a bass boat, talking pro wrestling and fishing. Did you see that, Doug?
So I don't follow the NXT product, which was really kind of good watching their premium live event. Just to see the wrestling and not really know who the heels are and who the baby faces are, because I kind of assumed that Braun's the baby face, Cruz is the heel, but then I start watching the vignettes that's leading up to it, like they go out to breakfast and they fish. Where's the beef here? What's the feud about? Oh, okay, it's a mutual respect kind of. Okay, okay. We're playing, and it's a bit of counter programming. It's a bit of meta counter programming at that point, because you have Ring of Honor earlier in the day, but you have these two guys basically fighting for honor, leading it or finishing up their pay-per-view or premium live event. Yeah, I caught that, and it was. It was entertaining for sure. I don't think that was by far. It was not the best match. I would have to call that out for being that men's Survivor, Iron Survivor, or whatever it was. I really enjoyed that, and not knowing the characters, I gotta say the Gacy guy reminds me of like a flippy floppy Kevin Owens. I've never seen him wrestle, and the guy who won, I'm assuming, is a heel. The way everybody was reacting afterwards, but. There are some dudes who can go, and the girls can go too. That shiny, happy, multicolored NXT that ran me away. I finally got to sit down and just absorb a lot of the Shawn Michaels, Triple H rubbing that shine off and just getting back to black and gold. And I really liked what I saw.
I'm glad you got a chance to see it, because, I think that Shawn Michaels has been doing great work when he didn't have Vince over his shoulder, and obviously he has Triple H's blessing, and they're staying more true to what the original NXT was.
Right.
There is some great talent that was definitely on display, and those kids were fighting like they did back in the old days, when you could see that these folks were waiting for that spotlight to be on them to get attention from the broader wrestling world that watches only Raw or SmackDown, perhaps. And to that point, I want to pivot to my match of the week. Before I get to, I will say it is definitely FTR versus Briscoe Brothers. So, you said it very well. If there is one match, that is the match. It was the final blow off probably between these teams, because they'd split the previous two matches they had. So this would be the third in the series, and they managed to make all three of those matches different. And all three of those matches, I'm pretty sure now, have been my match of the week. The week they occurred, and they're very likely going to figure pretty highly when I start to think of match of the year, because that's how good both these teams are and what chemistry they have together. Like you, I wasn't sure after the first two matches being so good that I wanted the blow-off match to be blood and guts and dog collar. I didn't.
Right.
Gimmick might hamper it. Instead, these men worked hard to incorporate the gimmick in a believable fashion.
Yeah.
Jay busted open within 2 or 3 minutes. You had a referee blade job. By the end, I was bleeding, and I didn't even know why.
I took a chair shot somehow.
It was that intense. So watch at your own peril, but definitely watch. That is my match of the week. But since you did point that one out, I would like to give an honorable mention, if I could, to the other tag team division on the other pay-per-view, making for such a happy Saturday for wrestling fans. Pretty Deadly versus the New Day. Obviously, the New Day are an accomplished team. Man, there was some hilarious spots. There were some creative spots. There were some flippy floppy spots. There were some tech spots. And Doug, to your point earlier about, hey, I'm tuning in for the first time in a while, and man, there's some talented folks there. I don't know how long New Day keeps the belts. This may be just the surprise booking. I figure it's going to be more like when we had Braun lose the NXT title to Dolph just very briefly. I don't think they'll hold the belts long. So they'll probably get that rematch, or it may just be a way to get the titles off Pretty Deadly so they can come up to the new roster, because you talk about a team that's ready. They have everything. They have the look. They have a very unique gimmick. I mean,
Yes.
Side Plate Check and Yes Boy, and I mean all this, and they are great in the ring. They're really unique characters. They are. You can plug them into the tag team scene in either Raw and SmackDown and improve it instantly right now.
You see the smile on my face because that match was hilarious from start to finish. I have heard the name Pretty Deadly and know that they're a tag team, but I, for some reason, thought they were a female tag team in NXT.
In your defense, I mean, they are, they're close to being really pretty.
I mean, I don't watch the product regularly. I just assumed that Pretty Deadly was a female tag team. I was like, who are these dudes? I was like, I love this Christmas gimmick thing they've got going on. This is hilarious. The side plate thing and all that. And the kids can go. And then working with New Day. Come on, man. I mean, that was premium live event there.
So the best matches of a really good day of wrestling overall. I mean, they were multi-men tag. I mean, it was a good day for tag team wrestling, which
yes,
for a while looked dead in the world of wrestling under Vince's leadership until you started getting AEW and the other companies filling that void. But tag team wrestling is things are looking promising again.
Indeed, they are.
And with that, folks. It is time to bid adieu to not just you all, but to the year 2022. We are taking time off to be with our family and friends for the holidays, and you hope you do the same. Doug, we are back on January 8th, and it is always one of my favorite shows that we do every year is the one we kick off the year with, because we're going to look at the top stories of the year. We're going to rank them. We're going to talk about our announcer of the year, our breakout performer of the year, the comeback performer of the year, most misused or underused performer of the year, tag team of the year, female performer of the year, male performer of the year, and always the favorite of wrestling fans to argue about, and that is match of the year.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good time. Got a few weeks to think about it. I promise I won't write all of my answers down 10 minutes before we hit the air.
And two, Doug, we also do bold predictions for the following year. So we got to go big on what will happen in 2023. I'm pretty sure if you go back and look at our bold predictions for 2022, the actual wrestling world of 2022 probably made our bold predictions look pretty tame as it turned out.
The wrestling world of 22 watched our show and said, oh, yeah, hold my beer and watch this.
Indeed it did. And hold our beers indeed, fans, until January the 8th. Come back. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you so much for supporting us in this endeavor. We've had a fun year presenting this show to you, so make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things, and have yourself a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll see you next year.
See you next year.